David Rhodes speaking now. Well, US President Donald Trump has issued another cryptic threat to North Korea. On Saturday, Mr. Trump tweeted that years of agreements with North Korea had failed and that only one thing will work. Asked by reporters what he meant by that, the president said, quote, "You'll figure that out pretty soon." Hours later, Mr. Trump blamed his predecessors for not eliminating North Korea's nuclear threats years ago.
For almost 30 years, through numerous administrations. I mean, if you look at President Clinton, paid billions of dollars, gave them billions more, and the day after the agreement was done, he was, meaning his father, was, because same thing over many years, but same attitude. I think this one's the worst of the group, but they started doing what they were doing, and now we got to a point. This should have been handled 25 years ago. Should have been handled 10 years ago. It should have been handled during the Obama administration. I mean, the truth is, Mike, I was handed a mess.
Well, US Republican lawmaker, one at least, agrees with President Trump that past methods haven't worked. But Ron Johnson, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, told CNN there is also no viable military option and that the US should look more towards China to resolve the crisis.
What's been tried in the past hasn't worked. I mean, I think that's obvious. And I think from my standpoint, the only thing that will work is get China fully engaged, use all of their influence. I think eventually probably regime change because, Kim Jong-un is all about maintaining his power, and he just thinks a nuclear program, nuclear weapons combined with intercontinental ballistic missiles will guarantee that. There is no viable military option. I mean, it would be horrific, and I don't think anybody wants to contemplate that. So we have to We must get China recognizing that they've got to get fully engaged. It's not in their best interest either to have Kim Jong-un with these types of weapons destabilizing the South Pacific.
Well, CNN military and diplomatic analyst John Kirby joins us now from Washington. He is a former press secretary for the Pentagon and a former spokesman for the U.S. State Department. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
The U.S. president said only one thing will work. You're a military man. You're a retired Rear Admiral of the U.S. Navy. What do you make of that threat? Is there a viable military option here?
No, and I would agree with Senator Johnson on this, as well as much of President Trump's national security team, which all have said publicly that they don't believe that this should play out militarily. Now, obviously, there's war, and then there's obviously having available to you military options short of outright conflict that you have to have in place to defend yourself. We have a treaty alliance with South Korea. We have to be able to meet that treaty alliance and those security commitments. All that's really a very, very serious obligation by the United States. But when he says only one thing will work, I hope what he means is diplomacy, because I do believe that there is room left for diplomatic solutions here. I also agree with Senator Johnson that more has to be done to pressure China. China has not used all the influence that we know that they can have on Pyongyang. Even though it is somewhat limited, they can do more. But it can't just be laid at China's feet either. The entire international community needs to continue to come together to pressure Pyongyang into a different course of action. But they aren't likely to go to the table until there's incentive for them to come to the table. And we're not going to build that incentive by continuing to threaten them militarily.
John, we know that next month the U.S. president is expected to travel to South Korea and Japan and China. He's already stated that his Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is wasting his time talking to partners and partners in those countries, saying that diplomacy is not an answer.
Yeah.
So why is the U.S. president going ahead with this trip, and is there a chance that he will look like a hypocrite?
Well, I think there's definitely a chance that he'll look hypocritical based on what he has tweeted before. I think a couple of thoughts here. First, we have to separate his national security team from him and his tweets. His tweets have been irresponsible. They've been reckless. They have certainly undermined the efforts by his Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who I know is trying to find a diplomatic way forward here. But his team is actually, I think, conducted themselves with respect to North Korea in a very measured, deliberate, responsible way. I think they have really tried hard to work together and to try to build some sort of momentum to a diplomatic solution. I think that the president should still make a trip to the region. I think he definitely should go to Seoul and to reassure the South Koreans that we take seriously our treaty obligations and our security commitments there. I hope he also uses this as a chance to walk back some of this heated rhetoric and work on real practical solutions. They are there, I'm sure. We're just going to have to work a little harder to find them.
John, some have suggested that President Trump is playing good cop to Rex Tillerson's bad, or vice versa, bad cop to good cop. Does that saber-rattling work with North Korea?
Well, I think if past is at all prologue, you'd have to say no, it doesn't. So listen, I've heard this theory too, that when he said, hey Rex, you're wasting your time, that what he believed he was doing was helping pressurize the atmosphere for negotiations and help Tillerson bring Pyongyang to the table. I don't know if that's true. That's one theory. But clearly, it didn't help Rex Tillerson on the international stage when his own president kind of pulls the rug out from under him. If you're sitting in Pyongyang, and again, we're not experts on what they think, but if you're sitting in Pyongyang, you got to be wondering, hey, you know, why should we be even trying to find a diplomatic solution with Rex Tillerson when he doesn't seem to even have the trust and confidence of his own president? So I don't know if that's what he was trying to do, good cop, bad cop, but it certainly I don't think helped at all.
In North Korea, in the next 48 hours, there'll be celebrations for the founding of the North Korean Workers' Party, and a top CIA official says we can expect another missile test or nuclear test. If that is to happen, what should the U.S. response be?
Well, you know, they do typically conduct tests or launches around anniversaries, so I certainly can't dispute the notion that we could be due for one here any time. I think it should simply underscore the sense of urgency by everybody in the international community to try to find a way to bring this to the table. Look, I have, this is a bit of a controversial thing, but I know I'm joined in this view by people like General Hayden, former CIA director, and the former DNI James Clapper, who have said that it's probably time for us to at least acknowledge publicly that North Korea has a nuclear capability. That doesn't mean we have to accept them as a nuclear state, you know, for time immemorial, but to acknowledge they have this capability, give them that which is what they want. They want to be acknowledged as one, and then maybe we can start from there to begin to find a way to get them to the table. But short of that, I really don't see a peaceful outcome for this continuing ratcheting up of tensions on the peninsula.
All right, John Kirby, we will have to leave it there for now, but always great to get your perspective. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Well, in one Chinese city, residents are on edge after North Korea's nuclear test last month. They fear the possibility of radiation floating across the border. Rivers went to see what people there are planning to do.